Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're jumping into a huge one of the biggest financial choices you'll probably ever face. Should you rent or should you buy a house? Now, this whole debate is just full of old school advice that, as we're about to find out, might not be so wise after all. All right, let's get into it. You know the one. We've all heard it a million times. It's probably the number one piece of financial advice everyone gets. People treat it like it's gospel. Renting is just throwing money away. They make it sound like if you're not buying a house, you're basically just setting a pile of cash on fire every month. But is it really that simple? And that's the big question we're going to tackle today. We're going to cut through all the noise. Forget the slogans and the emotional baggage that comes with this decision. We're just going to run the numbers. No opinions, no what you should do, just the cold, hard math of renting versus buying. Okay, so first up, let's attack that big myth head on. The whole argument boils down to this, right? Your rent check goes straight into your landlord's pocket. But your mortgage payment, well, that builds equity in a home you own. And look, that part is true. But, and this is a big but, it's a dangerously incomplete picture because it totally ignores all the money that homeowners also throw away every single month. So to really get this, let's look at how a mortgage actually works, especially in the first few years. Check this out. This is a first mortgage payment on a $320,000 loan. So you write a check for over $2,100, but guess how much of that actually pays down your loan? Only $262. That's it. The rest of it, almost $1,900, goes straight to the bank. It's pure interest. So if we're going to talk about throwing money away, well, that right there is a textbook example. And believe me, the interest payment is just the tip of the iceberg. When you own a home, you're also paying property taxes to your town or city. You've got homeowner's insurance. If you didn't put 20% down, you're probably paying PMI. Oh, and maybe you've got HOA fees. And let's not forget the fun stuff, maintenance and repairs. That new roof that costs a fortune, the water heater that decides to give up on a holiday weekend, none of that, not one single dollar, builds your equity. It's all just gone. Okay, to make this really hit home, let's put it into a real-world example. We're going to imagine buying a $400,000 house in a pretty typical American city. Let's really dig into what the true costs look like, starting with the pile of cash you need just to walk in the door. And wow, right off the bat, we're talking about a massive number. For that $400,000 house, you're going to need somewhere around $100,000 in cash. And that's not just the 80 grand for a 20% down payment. You've also got thousands in closing costs, plus money for the movers, and probably some immediate repairs of furniture. I mean, that is a huge financial wall to climb. All right, so once you're moved in, the monthly bills start rolling in, and they add up fast. Let's break it down. Of course, you've got your main mortgage payment, but then you have to tack on property taxes and insurance. And this next part is so important. You have to have a maintenance fund. You just have to. That's cash you put aside every single month for those big repairs that you know are coming eventually. When you add it all up, you're looking at a monthly nut of around $3,000.
Okay, so that's the homeowner's reality. Now, let's switch gears. Let's look at the renter living in a similar place. What does their financial situation look like?
Whoa! The difference is it's immediate and it's dramatic. Instead of that $100,000 we just talked about, the renter only needs about $6 grand to get moved in. That's enough to cover first month's rent, a security deposit, and the moving truck. The amount of cash you need up front is just a tiny, tiny fraction of what a home buyer has to come up with. And this is where you really start to see the renter's advantages pile up. First, obviously, the much lower cost to get in. But also, when the furnace breaks, not your problem. You're not paying property taxes every year. You have the total freedom to pack up and move for a better job without having to go through the headache and expense of selling a house. But here's the biggest one, the real game changer. All that money, the $94,000 or so that you didn't have to sink into a down payment and closing costs, is now freed up. You can invest it, and this is absolutely crucial. Okay, so let's do it. Let's put these two financial paths side by side in a 7-year showdown. Now, why 7 years? Well, because that's about how long the average person actually stays in their home, so it makes for a super realistic comparison. Okay, take a deep breath and let's walk through this table because the results here, they might actually shock you. First line, total cash paid out over those 7 years. The homeowner, they're out about $245,000. The renter, even with rent going up, has paid way less, around $180 grand. Okay, now for the second line, what assets do they have to show for it? The homeowner has built up about $95,000 in equity, and that's after we take out the big fees for selling the house. But now look at the renter, the smart, disciplined renter who invested their savings. Their investment account has grown to about $220,000. So, the bottom line, the final net position, the homeowner is actually in the hole by about $150 grand, but the renter, they're up $40,000. I mean, that is a staggering difference. In this specific 7-year scenario, the renter who invests comes out way ahead.
Now I have to stop here and make something crystal clear. The result we just saw is not a universal truth. It's not a law. It completely depends on a few really big what-ifs. Like, what if home prices in your city are just going crazy and appreciating like mad? Well, then the math flips and totally favors the homeowner. And what if you stay in that house for 15, 20, or 30 years? Yeah, the homeowner almost always comes out on top then. And of course, the biggest if of them all, this whole thing only works if the renter actually truly invests the money they save. If you don't, the whole argument falls apart.
So knowing all that, knowing all those variables, let's try to build a simple framework you can use to think about your own situation. Let's zoom out from our one example and figure out the general rules for when buying wins and when renting wins. So when does buying make the most sense? It's the clear winner if you know you're staying put for a long time. Think 7, 10, 15 years or more. That gives you time to get past all those huge upfront costs and ride out any dips in the market. It also wins if you just really value that feeling of stability and having a place that's all your own. Now, when does renting win? Renting is all about flexibility. It's the smart move if there's a good chance you might move for a job. It's also often the better deal if you live in a really expensive city where the cost to buy is just astronomical compared to the cost of rent. And, I'm going to say it one more time, it only wins if you are disciplined enough to invest the difference. Okay, we're at the final piece of the puzzle. I'm going to give you the single most powerful tool you can use to figure this out for yourself. It's called finding your break-even point. What is that? Well, think of it like the tipping point on a scale. It's the exact moment in time when all the costs of buying finally get balanced out by the benefits. Before you hit that point, renting would have been the cheaper option. But once you cross that break-even point, owning officially becomes the smarter financial move. And the cool thing is, you can actually estimate this yourself with some back-of-the-napkin math. It's just 3 steps. 1, figure out your total upfront buying costs, that big 6-figure number we talked about. 2, find the monthly savings you'd get by renting instead of paying all those thrown-away owner costs. And 3, just divide that big upfront cost by your monthly savings. That'll give you a rough idea of how many months you need to live in the house just to break even. And right now, for a lot of people, that number usually falls somewhere between 5 and 10 years. So, what does this all mean? It means that old saying, renting is throwing money away, is just, well, it's just a slogan. It's not a real financial analysis. There is no one right answer here. The right choice is deeply personal. It comes down to your city, your job, how long you plan to stay put, and honestly, your own discipline with money. So the whole point of this was never to tell you what to do. It was to give you the framework, the tools, to run the numbers for yourself and figure out what the right answer is for you.